Hey there, tech enthusiast. Let's talk about something that's becoming increasingly critical in today's world of modern warfare and everyday life: GPS jamming and spoofing. You've probably heard of GPS, Global Positioning System, before. It's the invisible network of satellites that helps you navigate your car, track your morning run, or even find the nearest coffee shop. But what happens when someone deliberately disrupts those signals? That's where things get scary and fascinating. In this article, we'll dive into how GPS jamming and spoofing work, why they're such a big deal in modern warfare, and what's being done to counter these threats. Stick around. It's going to be an eye-opening ride. Before we jump into the chaos of jamming and spoofing, let's quickly recap what GPS is. The Global Positioning System is a constellation of satellites orbiting Earth, constantly broadcasting precise timing signals. Your device, whether it's a smartphone, a fighter jet, or a guided missile, uses these signals to calculate its exact location anywhere on the planet. Sounds simple, right? Well, here's the catch. GPS signals are incredibly weak by the time they reach Earth. Think of them as whispers from space. And because they're so faint, they're surprisingly easy to interfere with. Enter jamming and spoofing, two techniques that can turn those whispers into silence or lies. Imagine you're driving through a tunnel and suddenly lose your GPS signal. Frustrating, sure, but what if that loss of signal wasn't accidental? That's essentially what GPS jamming does. A jammer broadcasts powerful radio noise on the same frequency as GPS signals, drowning out the real signals from satellites. The result? Your device thinks it has no idea where it is. In military terms, jamming is often used to create confusion or disable enemy systems. For example, many modern missiles rely on GPS for navigation. If you jam their signals, they might miss their targets, or worse, crash entirely. Ground forces using GPS-enabled devices could lose situational awareness, making them vulnerable to ambushes. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, depend heavily on GPS for navigation. Jamming can ground drones or send them spiraling out of control. Jamming isn't just limited to battlefields, though. Criminals have been known to use cheap, handheld jammers to avoid speed checks or tracking devices. In fact, incidents of civilian GPS jamming are more common than you'd think. Now, if jamming is like cutting off communication, spoofing is like impersonating someone. Instead of blocking GPS signals, spoofers broadcast fake ones that mimic legitimate satellite transmissions. The goal? To trick your device into thinking it's somewhere it's not. Spoofing involves transmitting false GPS coordinates to a target system. For instance, a ship navigating near hostile waters might suddenly think it's miles away from its actual position, leading it dangerously close to hazards or straight into enemy hands. Autonomous vehicles could be redirected off course, causing accidents or compromising sensitive cargo. Military operations could be thrown into disarray if troops or equipment receive incorrect location data. The scariest part? Spoofing is hard to detect. Unless you're actively monitoring for anomalies, your device won't know it's being fed bogus information. Still skeptical about how serious this issue is? Let's look at some real-world examples. Reports suggest that Russia has deployed sophisticated spoofing systems to protect high-profile locations like the Kremlin. Ships in nearby waters have reported bizarre GPS anomalies, with their systems showing positions miles away from reality. In 2011, Iran allegedly used GPS spoofing to hijack a US RQ-170 Sentinel drone. By feeding it false coordinates, Iranian forces tricked the drone into landing safely within their territory instead of returning to base. In 2019, South Korea accused North Korea of jamming GPS signals around Seoul, affecting hundreds of flights and ships. Similarly, truck drivers in Europe have reported losing GPS functionality due to smuggled jammers used by criminals. These examples show that GPS disruption isn't just theoretical, it's happening right now, with potentially devastating consequences. In today's hyper-connected battle space, GPS is the backbone of nearly every military operation. Here's why disrupting it can be a game changer. Modern warfare relies on precision-guided munitions that depend on GPS for accuracy. Without reliable navigation, these weapons become far less effective. Troops, vehicles, and aircraft share real-time data to coordinate movements. If GPS fails, the entire network risks falling apart. Drones, unmanned submarines, and robotic platforms all rely on GPS for navigation. Disrupting their signals can render them useless, or worse, turn them against their operators. Moving troops and supplies across vast distances requires precise coordination. GPS failures can lead to logistical nightmares, leaving armies stranded without fuel, food, or ammunition. For militaries, protecting GPS infrastructure has become a top priority. Losing access to accurate positioning data could mean losing the war. So, what's being done to fight back against these threats? Researchers and defense experts are working on several innovative solutions. Advanced antennas and filters can help devices distinguish between legitimate GPS signals and interference. Some systems even use directional antennas to focus only on the strongest, most reliable signals. Newer navigation systems, like Europe's Galileo or China's Beidou, operate on multiple frequencies. This makes it harder for jammers to block all channels simultaneously. Militaries are exploring alternatives to GPS, such as inertial navigation systems, INS, which use gyroscopes and accelerometers to track movement without relying on external signals. Celestial navigation and terrain mapping are also making a comeback. Specialized sensors can detect and locate sources of jamming or spoofing, allowing forces to neutralize the threat before it causes damage. Future GPS systems may include encrypted signals that are harder to spoof. Devices would need special keys to decode the signals, ensuring only authorized users can access them. While GPS jamming and spoofing pose significant risk to militaries, they also affect civilians. Imagine self-driving cars veering off roads, airplanes missing runways, or emergency services unable to locate disaster zones. The ripple effects of disrupted navigation systems could cripple economies and endanger lives. That's why governments and private companies are investing heavily in resilient technologies. Whether it's developing backup systems or creating smarter algorithms to detect anomalies, the goal is clear: ensure that GPS remains a reliable tool for everyone. GPS jamming and spoofing are stark reminders of how fragile our modern world can be. What started as a groundbreaking innovation has become a potential Achilles heel in both civilian and military contexts. As adversaries continue to exploit these vulnerabilities, staying one step ahead will require constant innovation and vigilance. Next time you glance at your phone to check directions, take a moment to appreciate the invisible signals guiding you, and consider the silent battles being waged to keep those signals safe. After all, in the age of modern warfare, controlling navigation means controlling the battlefield. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe invest in a good old-fashioned map, just in case.